Napoleon Bonaparte delivered a crushing blow to the Holy Roman Empire at the Battle of Austerlitz. This triumph solidified the French Empire's dominance over the continent, introducing innovative infantry tactics and artillery strategies that left the rest of Europe struggling to keep pace. Napoleon quickly reorganized the remnants of the Holy Roman Empire into a French vassal state and turned his focus to broader ambitions. It would take Europe 23 years and 7 coalitions to finally bring revolutionary France down. By 1815, within a generation, Napoleon's nephew established a second French empire. However, unlike his uncle, Napoleon III's military ventures collapsed in just over 6 weeks against a resurgent confederation of German states, who marched relentlessly to Paris. It could be argued that the Prussian leadership applied the lessons of French military innovation from the Napoleonic Wars even more effectively than the French themselves. In the Franco-Prussian War of 1870 to 1871, the decisive defeat of the Second Empire hinged on skilled maneuvers and cleverly deployed. One can imagine the elder Napoleon spinning in his grave, recalling his famous quote, "God fights on the side with the best artillery." In this video, we'll explore how the conflict unfolded and how the Germans turned the tables on their French rivals so dramatically. With the formation of the North German Confederation in 1867, Europe had a new power to reckon with. The previous year, the Austro-Prussian War saw a David versus Goliath struggle between, ending in a decisive Prussian victory and the establishment of the Confederation. Legendary statesman Otto von Bismarck orchestrated this conflict with careful political manipulation, ensuring that Prussia, not the ethnically fragmented and militarily outdated Austria-dominated German affairs. Prussia's rapid rise did not go unnoticed by France. Emperor Napoleon III, constantly trying to emulate the military glories of his famous uncle, saw Prussia's expansion as a threat to the European balance of power. His ministers urged territorial concessions along the west bank of the Rhine to strengthen France's eastern defenses, exactly what Bismarck wanted. Several German states had yet to join the Confederation, and Bismarck believed that provoking a war with France would compel them to unify under Prussian leadership. Rejecting Napoleon III's demands outright, Bismarck baited the French into a trap. In 1870, tensions over a Spanish-Prussian alliance provided the spark for a full-scale war. The stage was set for a conflict that would reshape Europe. Both the French and German militaries were among the continent's best, with the French recently victorious against Russia and Austria, and the Germans successful against Austria and Denmark. The French army relied on selective conscription, maintaining a professional corps with long-term service and incentives for re-enlistment. Germany, by contrast, employed universal conscription with shorter service periods, keeping only a fraction of troops active during peacetime, but maintaining a vast reserve force. France could muster around 400,000 professional soldiers, whereas Germany could draw on over 1 million conscripts. The key challenge was mobilizing and deploying them efficiently to the front. Both sides knew that early action would be decisive. Under pressure from his generals to strike before the Germans could fully assemble, Napoleon III departed Paris on July 28, 1870, commanding the Army of the Rhine eastward to invade Germany and liberate the southern states. This move played perfectly into Bismarck's plan, as the southern states immediately pledged allegiance to Prussia. The first shots were fired on August 2nd, when the French Second Corps under General Chauins crossed into Saarbrücken, expecting little resistance. Armed with breech-loading chassepot rifles, the French easily overcame the older Dreyse needle rifles of the Germans. They also deployed the fearsome mitrailleurs, a rapid-fire volley gun capable of 125 rounds per minute. Despite fierce resistance, the French captured the town, emboldening Napoleon III to press forward, only to be confronted by advancing German forces at Wissembourg. The French First Corps, under General Abel Douay, faced overwhelming numbers. Despite valiant use of mitrailleuses from rooftops and defensive positions, German artillery soon forced surrender. Napoleon hastily ordered Marshal Patrice MacMahon to engage the advancing Germans, unaware that 3 German armies had already assembled. This feat of logistics, orchestrated by Field Marshal Helmuth von Moltke, relied on detailed terrain surveys, accurate maps, and meticulous supply planning, allowing German forces to mobilize faster than the French anticipated. MacMahon's 45,000 men took up a defensive position near the town of Worth, using a wooded ridge for cover. Despite inflicting heavy casualties with the Chassepot rifles, German artillery outclassed the French, forcing a retreat with nearly 20,000 casualties in hours. Further west, the French Second Corps also suffered as German infantry attacked from multiple directions, exploiting weaknesses in French formations and poor communications. By the evening, retreat was inevitable. Napoleon III, in ill health, witnessed the collapse of his forces. The selective conscription system had left the army filled with the poorest, least trained men, while career soldiers were often old or plagued by alcoholism. Despite being outnumbered, MacMahon attempted a breakout on August 21st, only to be tracked by German cavalry and caught in a pincer movement. Deploying defensively near the fortress of Sedan, his troops were ultimately overwhelmed. The first photograph of active combat was taken during this campaign. Battles such as those at Bazaille and Sedan demonstrated brutal house-to-house fighting, relentless artillery bombardments, and the collapse of French command due to confusion and poor coordination. By the end of these engagements, Napoleon III raised a white flag, surrendering his 83,000 remaining troops, while over 38,000 had been killed, wounded, or captured. Only a few thousand escaped to Belgium. The defeat at Sedan marked the death of the Second French Empire. Napoleon III, deeply unpopular, was captured, prompting an uprising in Paris and the establishment of the Third Republic. Despite proclamations from General Louis-Jules Trochu to defend the capital, France's army was no longer capable of meaningful resistance. German forces were harassed by French partisans, delaying their advance long enough for Paris to organize a defense of over 400,000 men. Yet most were poorly trained members of the National Guard, and only 60,000 were actual soldiers. When the Germans reached Paris on September 17th, they quickly encircled the city. The imperial palace at Versailles was captured and became the headquarters of the besieging army. Marshal Bazaine, trapped and starving, surrendered on October 27th with 133,000 men. The only notable French success came on November 9th, when 70,000 troops from the newly raised Army of the Loire defeated 20,000 Bavarians at Orleans, inspiring Parisians to continue resisting. Nonetheless, King Wilhelm I staged his coronation at Versailles on January 18th, cementing the creation of the German Empire. Bismarck intensified the bombardment of Paris, and the city capitulated on January 27th, after an armistice disarmed all but one French division. After 6 months, the war concluded. German forces, though victorious, suffered around 44,000 casualties, while France endured over 150,000 dead, equal numbers wounded, and 723,000 captured. Civilian populations were devastated by reprisals and siege warfare. A communist uprising in Paris in March 1871 briefly established the Paris Commune, but it was brutally suppressed in what became known as the Bloody Week from May 21st to 28th. Meanwhile, Germany celebrated the formation of a powerful, prosperous empire. Kaiser Wilhelm I saw his nation rise to world power status with colonial holdings overseas, while Napoleon III went into exile, dying 3 years later, living just long enough to witness the Third Republic blame him entirely for France's humiliating defeat. On his deathbed, he reportedly whispered, "Isn't it true that we weren't cowards at Sedan?" The Franco-Prussian War didn't just end an empire. It redrew the map of Europe and set the stage for the industrial-scale conflicts of the 20th century. By mastering the art of mobilization and the devastating power of modern artillery, the newly unified Germany signaled its arrival as a global titan, while France was left to rebuild from the ashes of a humiliating defeat. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the clash that forged the German Empire, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to join our growing community of history enthusiasts. Do you think Napoleon III ever truly stood a chance against Bismarck's political maneuvering? Or was the Second Empire's collapse inevitable? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on History in a Nutshell.